The Samaritan Woman and the Hidden Marriage Proposal, a structural and historical analysis of John's well scene. By Ray Taylor, Ph.D. The encounter between Jesus and the Samaritan woman at Jacob's well in the Gospel of John is often treated as a conversation about living water and spiritual revelation. This is the surface reading. However, a closer examination of the narrative structure within the larger context of ancient Near Eastern and Second Temple period marital symbolism strongly suggests that the scene is functioning as a coded marriage proposal. The details of the encounter follow the standard pattern of biblical betrothal scenes, draw from earlier well narratives, and culminate in language indicating self-offering. These features combine to reveal that the well scene is not simply theological exposition. It is a narrative of symbolic marital union and covenant formation. The well motif carries a long-standing association with betrothal in biblical literature. In Genesis, a man meets a woman at a well, water is drawn, hospitality is offered, and a marriage follows. This pattern appears with Isaac and Rebekah, Jacob and Rachel, and Moses and Zipporah. Every one of these narratives follows the same structural sequence. A journey leads a man to a well. A woman appears. Water drawing becomes the central point of interaction. Dialogue establishes mutual recognition. A marriage results. These ritual features were known to ancient audiences. The authors of the Gospel of John preserve these elements in the Samaritan well scene. This is not accidental imitation. It is direct literary signaling. The key sentence that unlocks the narrative is the Samaritan woman's remark that she has no vessel to draw water. This line functions as the recognition moment that, in earlier betrothal narratives, symbolizes the mutual introduction of bride and bridegroom. In biblical tradition, the act of drawing water is the symbolic acceptance of a marriage proposal. By responding that he would have given her the water of life, and that the water comes from himself, Jesus in this narrative offers himself in the form of symbolic living water. The narrative therefore presents him as both the giver and the gift. This is marital language. It is about covenantal union expressed through the imagery of water, depth, and life. The statement that he can provide water that eliminates thirst forever completes the marriage imagery. In ancient symbolic language, the bridegroom is the source of sustaining water, while the bride receives it as part of the covenantal bond. The narrative shows this in a distinctly Johannine form. The water is not literal but symbolic of life, truth, and union. The exchange moves from physical water to the deeper category of eternal life, which in ancient symbolic marriage theology corresponds to the creation of a new household or spiritual family. A new union is being described in terms of water bestowal and reception. The historical clue that confirms the marital meaning is the immediate shift in the narrative from the well to the town where the woman announces her encounter. This functions the same way betrothal narratives functioned in earlier texts. After the well encounter, a public announcement follows that signifies the formation of a new relational covenant. The Johannine story preserves this pattern exactly. She leaves her water jar behind, which symbolizes the acceptance of the new water she has received. In symbolic terms, she leaves her former source of life and takes on the new one given to her. The final structural link in the pattern is the movement from the well scene to a celebratory context associated with Cana in surrounding chapters. Cana is where the water to wine transformation occurs, and wine in biblical symbolism is a marriage element. It represents covenantal joy and union. Placing these scenes in close narrative sequence reinforces the symbolic marital theme. The evangelist is constructing a literary progression that begins with well betrothal imagery and moves toward symbolic marriage celebration. This is the same pattern used in older betrothal texts in Genesis and Exodus. In sum, the narrative of Jesus and the Samaritan woman at the well is functioning as a deliberately constructed marriage proposal according to the literary conventions of ancient biblical literature. Every narrative element corresponds with earlier betrothal scenes, including the meeting at a well, the exchange regarding water, the symbolic vessel, the offer of sustaining life, the recognition dialogue, and the narrative movement toward public declaration and communal celebration. The Gospel of John intentionally reshapes traditional marriage symbolism in order to present a theological message about union with the figure of Jesus. The scene is not casual or incidental. It is a structured symbolic betrothal text embedded in the fourth Gospel. This interpretation fits naturally into the motif of living water used throughout Johannine literature and aligns with the ancient understanding of water as a symbol of life, covenant, and relational union. The scene, therefore, should be read not merely as theological metaphor, but as a deliberately crafted symbolic marriage proposal operating within the recognizable literary pattern established by earlier biblical narratives. The narrative logic is consistent, the symbolism is intentional, and the structural parallels are unmistakable.
Veritas Lux Maya.